Good afternoon. My name is Dusty Lang, and I'm very excited to be bringing you the first episode of the third season of the DHS S&T LRBAA Today webinar series. We have an exciting show planned for you today with a lot of information. So I'm going to very briefly go over some information about the LRBAA, Long Range Broad Agency Announcement. And then we're going to hop into the discussion. I have two fantastic colleagues that will be joining me. For those who are less familiar with the LRBAA, we do have an in-house outreach episode that we'll be providing a link to at the end of this webinar so that you can go and find out all the details. But high level, the Long Range Broad Agency Announcement was set up by DHS S&T Science and Technology as a three-step process that is designed to reduce the burden for both industry and for government to be able to submit and discover innovative solutions that can help us to achieve the DHS mission needs. The three-step process is generally, the first step is called the industry engagement, and it's a 3-page white paper with a briefing chart that can be submitted, and it's an overview of your idea that you would want to submit to DHS to find out if there's interest. If there is interest, then you would be invited to the second step, the virtual pitch, where there's an opportunity for you to, as the submitter, be able to present to the government 12 slides for 20 minutes to be able to articulate what your idea is and what you think you'd be able to accomplish if we were to proceed. And then the government can ask some questions. It's very important to understand that throughout this process, the government is not going to be able to give you hey, this is what we need you to do. The LRBAA is structured for us to really receive your ideas, for us to understand what you believe would be something that should be conducted that would be helpful to our mission. If after the virtual pitch, there's interest in moving forward, then you'd be invited to the third step, which is the written proposal. We take these first two initial steps both to reduce time for the government in terms of reviewing a whole proposal, but also understanding for industry the creation of a proposal with all the thought and due diligence that needs to go into that activity costs money. So we want to make sure that if we get to that step, we're in a place where we have a reason to believe there's something that we have interest in really going forward with and being able to pursue. So subsequent to the written proposal, if there's interest in that, then we would be looking at potentially proceeding with an award or a contract. Right now, we have 17 topics out on the LRBAA announcement. We do an annual update, which we just completed recently. So those topics that are out there now are either ones that are enduring from our previous announcement postings or have been updated or new ones. And today we have two that we're going to be concentrating on. So to start that discussion, I would like to introduce Toy Nguyen, who is a program manager. He's program manager for the next generation explosives trace detection. I knew it was a tongue twister, sometimes called NGETD. So if you hear that going forward, that's what we're referring to. And then Adriana DeRoca, who is one of our fantastic contracting officer representatives. She's been doing this for a good number of years and really she knows the ropes of this. So Adriana, if you could join us as well. And then Toy, if you could introduce yourself to our audience, and then Adriana, if you could as well.
Thank you, Dusty. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Toy Nguyen. I'm a program manager of Next Gen ETD at DHS S&T. We are part of the screening teams under Dr. John Fortune. So my background, I'm a chemist by training. I also dabble into operations research, working with Combined Joint Task Force Paladin in Afghanistan. And then I also work a little bit with the Marine Corps Fighting Lab, working on the integration of robots and Marine formations such as squad, company, platoon, etc.
Thank you. I've always wanted to dabble in something. Adriana?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much, Dusty. It's a pleasure to be part of this webinar. So my name is Adriana DeRoca. I am a contracting officer representative within DHS's Science and Technology Directorate. I have 11 years of experience as a Corps, working overseas in Germany for the Army and in US for the Navy with NAFAC. Within the Department of Homeland Security, I have worked also for the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, which is FLETC, and I'm currently, of course, with the S&T Directorate. Now I represent CAPS as a Contracting Acquisition Program Support Division, working and helping programs and missions, including Next Generation ETD, and supporting SBIR, a Small Business Innovation Research Project. Thank you.
The best two programs, if you ask me, within all of S&T, right? Thank you very much, and these are impressive skills and expertise to be bringing to us today to help share. So if we can, and I think Toy, if I can throw this to you first, one of the things I think is important for folks to understand is kind of the DHS mission that we're looking to be able to satisfy the needs and S&T's support of that mission. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, so first let me talk a little bit about our mission. So S&T mission has always been to support DHS components, and in my line of work, then we support primarily TSA, but also to a large extent also Secret Service and lesser extent CBP. So we work very closely with our component and component representative so that we can pull operational input from them, requirement from them. So let me give you a little bit overview about what it means to be explosive detection. So this is top of the concept of operations. So you're all familiar with, if you want to go through a checkpoint, then you go first, you have to divest, put certain personal item on a conveyor belt that go through an X-ray. The person then walk through an AIT, an advanced imaging technology, then depend on whether there's an alarm from either the X-ray or the AIT, then that item or the person will go through what we call alarm resolution. And that's step number 6 on the screen there. And what it means is that then a TSO would come in and try to, with the current procedure and current technology, then they would use something like this, like a swab, to swab a person's hand or a piece of luggage, and from there try to get some residue out of that surface, and then introduce that into an explosive trace detector. And the function of that trace detector is that what it does is that it will tell whether or not the residue has any of the explosive, and it can also identify exactly what the explosive in that residue. So that is explosive trace detection, the current mission. Now, if you expand that a little bit further into other security screening, ConOps, security checkpoint, you can see that it can be applied similarly, maybe without that primary screening, without that X-ray, without that AIT, but can also be applied at a border crossing. Can also be applied at a security checkpoint for other DHS agency, Secret Service, Federal Protective Service, etc. So that is one of the key things. Okay, so you have to think about the ConOp of where it's being used: Coast Guard, CBP, Secret Service, TSA. So that is the background of our mission is to support those frontline users, the TSO, the Secret Service agent, the CBP agent, in fulfilling their job of detect, identify, confirm explosive. So let me ask the second question. Okay, so how is it that S&T,
how do we
help
connect
us?
or support? Yeah.
Okay, so S&T help us in multiple ways. I would call out one of the key things that I've seen over the last 2 years would be the employment of the matrix team concept, and that is allow us to pull in operational information more efficiently. So we would go through the portfolio manager to pull that information in, and then we then discuss with our counterpart from TSA RCA, from CBP, from the Secret Service, to say, okay, is it exactly what you need? And then how can we come up with an R&D solution to address your need? So we work with our counterpart quite often, weekly, monthly, if there's a need, so that to understand first, are there new threats? And what are the natures of the threat? What are their signatures? And then how can we bring about, the R&D tool to detect, identify, and confirm it? So I would like to call out, within the Matrix team, then we also engage with other officers within DHS S&T. And the great thing here is Adriana, who is the core that helped us, basically the whole program, execute the project way more efficiently than before. Before I transfer to Adriana, I can mention also the role of TSL, the Transportation Security Lab, in helping us, verify, make sure that any technology that we develop will meet the detection performance that our component demand from us.
Right, that's important. Adriana?
Yes, thank you, Toy. I would like to mention the metrics from an admin and contractor point of view. So as you said in the past, the project and program managers in S&T used to also perform the core duties and functions. Now, since we have created the CAPS divisions for contract support, we are more flexible and work together with the PMs to meet the contractual requirements. So both roles are individual. Even before the execution of the contract, there is now more oversight on projects, and we bring our diversity of background to the mission, such as technical experts and the contractual experts. The core performs lots of duty to have this mission, including more important service connection between the S&T programmatic teams, such as next generation ETD, in your case, in this team, with the performer, the customer, DHS components, S&T offices like OPO, Office of Procurement Operations, Legal, FPD, Finance and Budget Division, Invoicing Department. So as a core, I get involved throughout the contract, starting with the step 1 until the POP ends, ensuring that deliverables are compliant with the statement of work for each contract. Thank you.
Yes, and you help them get paid, which is also really,
Correct.
really important.
The invoices. Mm-hmm.
Just so they know how important your job is. All right, so thank you both. So, I mean, at S&T, our job is science and technology, and we're always trying to push ahead and trying to get further, right? So in FYI 22, what are your thrust areas? What are you looking to try to achieve in FY 22? Okay.
So let me explain first. So, whatever technology being deployed to the field, that's normally one of the first things that we have to be able to, keep it up to date, maintain it, but also, enhance that capability to address any new threat, to make sure that operators use it in an efficient way so that that operator would be able to best sample surface. So, so for thrust area, right, the first one we call enhanced detection capability of currently deployed system. It used to be just based on ETD only, but now recently with our TSA, RCA counterpart, then we expanded to include BLS, border locus scanner, and colorimetric kits. We also work on next-gen mass spec ETD. That is one of the topic in here. And then the next one, brand new small bulk confirmatory capability through barriers. And lastly, vapor detection. I would talk at length a little bit about, the overarching theme of each one of these fields. So when you think of explosive detection, identification, confirmation in the field, what does that mean, right? So you have to say, okay, we receive that requirement from our DHS component, and then from there, we have to distill it down to certain elements that is applicable to certain technologies, right? So 3 things, we call it, the triple constraint come to mind. The first thing is a sensitivity. The second thing is the spectral resolution. And the third thing is throughput. And what it means is that your sensitivity for many instruments are extremely important because many things you don't see. Residues, right? You can say, well, actually, I don't see the residue. Where is it? So through a lot of training, a TSA would be able to sample at the right place. But still, it is a very challenging issue because the residue is just so little, and the chance of 1 grain of explosive in there is very small. So that's why it's critical throughout all the four thrust area. And same thing if you talk about vapor, very important. Spectral resolution, that talk a lot about how we are able to identify one explosive to the next, like TNT versus RDX. So that is critical, because that would provide the feedback to the component and say, okay, I'm tracking this explosive. Is that new explosive or not new explosive? So that they can develop and we can develop appropriate solution for that. And throughput. This one talks more about aviation checkpoint, where throughputs, you can see we have thousands and thousands of passengers. If I was to have to say, many major airports go through millions of passengers, go through that every year. So throughput, they actually put a lot of constraint on any technology that we develop. So with that trip constraint covered, so now I'm now going to talk about more specific. So the first one is, you see the picture of an ETD that is currently being deployed. It's called IronScan 500 DT. So that is the one that is being deployed, right? So if whenever there's new and emerging threat, whether through intel or whether through some government agency informing us, yes, there's something new. So what it means is that we would have to go in and assess what are their signatures of the new explosive, and then somehow update the detection algorithm of that system in the field. So that's one example of how we enhance that detection capability. The other would be, how to train the TSO on how to sample a surface properly. It looks simple, but this one right here, normally the training, you actually have to apply a lot of force, the pressure, and that can be around 5 to 10 Newton. You can literally press it out. And the more you press on the surface, actually, the higher collection efficiency that a TSO can get out of surface. So that just speaks to the two things that we do to help enhance it, currently deployed system. The next thing that I would like to talk about, the next gen mass spec ETD, and the topic in this call for enhanced detection capability of contact and non-contact. And only recently that we updated. This is with the latest thing that we work with you, Dusty, and your team to update this topic, because we feel like, the technology out there are mature enough, and many industrial partners were able to leverage previous experiences, previous knowledge from previous effort with the government, with DoD, with DHS, S&T, and with TSA, so that I think it's prime enough for them to start going from TR7 to TR8 and mature that. And the key thing in there, we just draw out one example here, is the mass spec ETD. And the reason we would like to embark on such a path is it has higher spectral resolution. And spectral resolution is one of the key to be able to tell us, right? I can tell one explosive from the next, and it's very easy to add in an explosive because of that resolving power. Then we can still say, okay, it's not, the two peaks are not overlapped. So that is the next gen mass spec ETD. And in the latest topic, the latest update, we really emphasize the need for, the acceleration of that maturation, so that we require, you have to develop the hardware, the software, and the detection algorithm concurrently, so that in very short time, we would be able to push it through some round of developmental test and evaluation and get feedback. And from there, we can, ask the component, see, this is how good it can get, so that they can work on their end to think about operational field testing and then deployment. The third thrust area is a small bulk confirmatory capability through barrier. And this is a very challenging issue. We often think of, any bottle, such as water bottle right here. And many times, if it is, you go through a checkpoint, many times say, well, if there's bottle, you have to empty it. Then you can bring in an empty bottle, because many times BOS can work on some of that. But most of the time, if it is something else, TSOs would just ask us to discard it. So what we would like to know is that being able to detect, identify, confirm whatever is inside a bottle. And a bottle in here, or package, a plastic bottle, or plastic package, or even paper bag, any of those above. And that can add to the complexity. So as with any alarm resolution technology, the challenge is how to bring the signature out of the bottle and into the detector. So let me take this, for example. This is a soy sauce bottle. You see it has brown glass. So what it makes is that it's very hard to actually go through. And again, we're not allowed, per the cutoff, to open and sample inside. That would add too much complexity at a checkpoint. So we would say, okay, can you actually have some technology that bring out the technology from the inside to the outside? And with this, when you go through the paper label here, it's actually more complex because the paper label can attenuate or weaken the signal either coming in or coming out. So that the third thrust area. And the last one is on vapor. And the vapor is something even more challenging to get to because, many times you go to the kitchen in summer, yes, you can smell it, but not during the winter. That's because the cold air, cold weather actually sink or it condense the vapor, and that makes it harder to get to one's nose or to dog nose. And that itself is a very challenging issue. And we really try to enhance that by how can we come up with a way to enhance that entrainment from the source to the detector so that we can better detect and identify and confirm it. So that is in a nutshell, the 4 thrust area that we work on. Can I have another minute?
Oh, yes, I promised folks we would have a lot of information covered. Yes, so
yeah, I would like to talk a little bit about the machine learning effort, and we may come back to the machine learning effort later. And this is working with your SBIR office too, Dusty, that we are able to start to work on that. And again, whatever machine learning module capability that we develop has to be able to loop into the detection requirement that the components need. And one of the key things that we try to do there is, okay, so if we get all the hardware to pull, the spectral data, spectra information, can we use it to train the machine learning so that it itself can detect, identify, and confirm, and then inform us, okay, based on the machine learning, based on my training, again, the module, that I'm able to identify this is CT, TNT, RDF. And that is something that we start to work on. We get a lot of feedback from our component. They like it. And we are able to make, inroad working with them so that in the near future, we would be able to compare, the detection capability of a machine learning module and of the native one. That's the one that, scientists actually would have to go in, write, tweak the peak, and do it. So we hope to do it in the near term, compare that directly.
I think this is, again, we promised really great information. I love how you've done a couple things. One, the making sure that it's understood all of this is part of a larger plan. If you're doing something with us in one area, this is being incorporated into a bigger picture and how we're going to do things. And I think it is important for folks to realize that not only are we looking at what our threats are today, but we're always looking at how do we make things easier and better and faster to go forward? How do we figure out ways to be able to address that next threat, sometimes even before we know what that is? So I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, and Dusty, if I may, I
yes,
really
please.
like this idea of you showing us the battles. It's a great way to envision what we are working on and how you relate these 2 topics to the real life. Also from a contractual point of view regarding the trace capabilities mentioned by you, Toy, we need to realize that it took over 20 years to develop and we are still working on several issues. Small bulk may also take an extended period of time to develop. That's why, we are working very close with TSA to overcome all these challenges. We are also working with TSL and the US Army to develop testing and evaluation capabilities.
And another good example of how the bigger bigger picture and how we're leveraging. We don't have to invent it here. If there's something that, like you said, Toy and Adriana, what you're referencing is if something is developed somewhere else and then there needs to be a tweak to be able to make that work for DHS, this is something that may be an application that they could put through the LRBAA. So, yep, wonderful. So you talked a little bit about it, but I don't know how keenly folks were tuned in on it, on the topics themselves, the LRBAA topics. So could you provide some clarity on these two topics that we have out there that we're asking folks to respond to?
Okay, so let me talk first about the next gen ETD, right? So we did emphasize that, an industrial partner coming in, going through that process that you mentioned, virtual pitch and then full proposal, would have to be able to leverage and also leverage previous work from other vendors and by themselves, and then gain that very strong knowledge very early on, know exactly what explosive to detect, at what detection level, is it nanogram, is it microgram, and what kind of surface are they sampling from. And then from there, right, they would have intimate knowledge of the detection requirement so that they can accelerate their development. And we emphasize that, they need, if they don't know the detection requirement, they do need to collaborate, partner with someone else, just so that they can be brought up to that level. And we would be happy to help them to make that inroad too. But that because, of a very tight R&D cycle that our component requests from us, that's why we would really want to push it forward so that, in less than a year, we would be able to test and evaluate it right away to see whether it's ready or not for operational test and evaluation. So that, and, further information about, the resolution, about, what class of explosive, is it, TNT, nitroaromatic, or some others, that is actually in the long-range BAA. It is mentioned very specific, the throughput, what are the functional requirements, all of that need to be covered. Let me switch to the next thrust area, which is the small book confirmatory capability through barrier. So as mentioned before, right, we have many different kind of barriers that we can think of. So one of them would be, clear, something like this. It could also be brown, translucent glass. It could be paper. And the key thing is that, somehow we would have to be able to get the signature out of it without opening. And again, I would like to emphasize that the idea of someone coming in and try to sample from the inside, well, many times aviation checkpoint and security checkpoint do not allow for such a tedious time. And also, I mean, for many operators, right, it's not the emphasis. They're not chemists, they're not scientists, that they have to go in and see where's the peak and then match it. That can take days. So whatever that, an industrial partners propose, they have to keep that operator in mind. And we are here, to help enhance that mission. So I hope that covered the two main topics. Do you have anything else? Is that close enough? Is that deep enough?
I think that helps. So we'll see if we'll do some questions later. We'll see if we get more, but I like the bringing into perspective the operator. And this is one where I think it's a little bit easier for folks to understand the constraints of the operators and the operational environment, because we've all been in the line for TSA. And, if they were opening all the bottles, then we certainly understand that would not be ideal. Adriana, did you have anything more for that one? Because I have a question I have for you.
He covered pretty everything. Thank you.
All right. So my question for you is, the LRBAA wonderfully allows for a diversity of partners, right? So I think it's a fantastic idea, and one of the things we want to do is take advantage of that. Anytime we're not reaching parts of industry or academia or any place that can propose to us, we're missing out on potential ideas. Do you want to talk about the role that plays in this program?
Absolutely, thank you. So NextGen ETD has over 20 ongoing contracts with private sector companies, academic institutes, federal labs, and foreign governments. We've been working with 5 international teaming agreements with foreign partners, including 2 with UK, we have 1 with Netherlands, Germany, and Israel. That means that your technology you develop also has potential to be purchased by international governments. The point of me saying all of this is that we always welcome proposals from new companies, regardless of size and name. We do not discriminate against any company, and we are eager to work with the private sector to get a better understanding where the state of technology currently is, of course. Come with something new, come with something unique. And once on the contract with the vendor, we do our best to provide you the tools, the resources, and connection that you need to advance your research and development. We engage with the vendors very often. I can't emphasize enough how we have to plan for the goals from our first discussion, kickoff meeting, throughout to the end of the contract. Also, we don't leave the performance alone and expect a prototype in the end of the contract. We will involve other components of DHS as partners and assist the performer along all the way to get expertise feedback, of course. I want to mention also, for example, this year, our team, NextGen ETD, did something really new. We is pioneering the machine learning work with S&T, like Toy mentioned before, in order to help these companies reach their maximum output. We also invited TSA, which is Transportation Security Administration, to the meetings so they can guide the project in the direction to benefit for everyone. We currently have 3 contracts with SBIR Performance, Small Business Innovation Research. So these 3 private sector companies are helping us also to pioneer this machine learning at S&T. We are implementing our CONOPS, concept of operations, to ensure we are successful and the contract requirements are met. Toy, if you want to provide some more example of our machine learning work with DHS.
Yeah. So Adriana, that speaks a lot to the diversity of of different field, right? So you can think that these machine learning companies, that all they know is about is machine learning. They can tweak, they can do anything, they can employ, but they have no knowledge on explosive. They have no knowledge on sampling coupon, none of that. So actually, we are able to leverage within our own network, one of the IA that Adriana mentioned earlier, NRL, and then University of Rhode Island, so that we can actually give them certain explosive coupon. So remember, with our explosive coupon to train the machine learning module, they don't know anything. So that speaks to, you need to be able to train the machine learning and then see whether, if it's alarm on something, right? Say like if it's alarm on TNT, we have to use that tension map. Say yes, because of that region in the spectral range, for example, so that it gives us more confidence. And that also speaks to what S&T talked about, we don't just go into machine learning blindly. We have to be able to understand why does it alarm? Why does it behave that way? So training it and then test and evaluate to see whether it's true or not is critical. And, we did work with TSA RCA very strongly, and they actually provided us with the hardware, the first defender, so that we can turn and say, okay, these 3 companies use the spectra generated from this first defender unit, train it, go through all the scenario, and then after that, provided us with the probability of detection, probability of false alarm, the detection performance. So that speaks about diversity of input. So not just one single company, but different players that all contribute to the same mission.
And certainly, I said in the beginning, we're looking to do as partners, and all of what you've just said is exemplary of that partnership, not only the company with S&T, but bringing in our other partners and making all those connections and potentially working with their colleagues in their fields is important for them to understand as well. So I think that's a great perspective on how we see this being able to play in there. And I think, as you talked about we can help them with samples and those sorts of things, coming into this, there's going to be folks that have less knowledge or experience, and we can't get everybody in the door and say, here's a sample, right? So they have to do a little bit of work on their end still. So I think it's important that as best we can, we provide them, there's all kinds of places to try to start to get information. How can we help them start someplace good, at least, so they have a good starting point? Can you talk about some of the resources that you would recommend or think are good ones for them to begin their educational experience towards learning more?
With COVID, may I take this, Adriana? Okay, so with COVID, it's a little bit challenging. So in the past, we did have workshop, and my predecessor, Dr. Laura Parker, used the TED workshop, the trace explosive detection workshop. With COVID, it kind of went online, but the one that's most consistent is there are seminars by LRBAA. This is DHS S&T Center of Excellence out of Northeastern University that routinely run, I think, quarterly seminars on explosive detection. They also have some other with custom and border protection kind of emphasis, but I mean, the ADSA is specifically focused on explosive detection, and they are expert in many things, and because they are funded by S&T, so that's the mission, to bring that technology to loop in those who are not in the know, to bring them up to speed. I could also mention several other mechanisms. Number one is that you could also have direct contact with us, and we can refer you to different organizations. For example, right, we provide funding to TSL to do what we call technical assessment of certain technology. So many vendors do not have access to explosives sample or even bulk sample, right? Then they would say, okay, I don't know enough about that, but if I send my unit to TSL, TSL is conducting a technical assessment, and then TSL then provide that input back to them. Okay, here are the spectra of this kind of experiment that I did on your instrument, so that you can then use it to optimize your detection algorithm. That's one mechanism. We also have NIST and NRL. Those two partners also work on similar mission, but with a lesser emphasis on detection requirement. Remember, TSL is DHS Transportation Security Lab that focus specifically on that detection requirement. They know what explosive at what level to test. Whereas NIST and NRL it's more general. They just want to see, well, whether you can collect efficiently. What are the collection efficiencies of this instrument, of this swab, and then, or whether this optical technology is efficient. Does it have enough laser power? Does the laser power actually hurt the eyes? Something like that. So those are, different venues that we could provide to someone who may not know enough about detection, explosive detection requirement. But I think that the first step, reach out to us if you need anything.
And I think we had coordinated
Yes.
with you to get some links
That's
that
right.
were going to be able to be posted
right.
in the chat.
That's right.
So
That's right.
we'll make sure that we get those out to folks that can help them get directly to some of those places that
Yes.
you recommend.
Yes.
Great.
Thanks.
Wonderful. And I think one of the distinctions often what we get is we get contact and say, hey, I need to know how to contact these folks to see if they're interested in me submitting this idea. The way to do that, if you have an idea, the way to get that in is to submit to the LRBAA topic. That first industry engagement is the way we tell you if there is interest. If there's other things, to discuss, obviously those can happen, but way to find out is to submit. So thank you very much. Adriana, did you have more on that? No? Okay, I'm coming to you next anyway, so you're not off the hook. So one of the questions we get a lot is with the LRBAA revolves around funding, available funding, what kind of funding thresholds there are, and there's lots of different things that go into this in terms of constraints and challenges, but broadly, how do we know what you're going to propose? How do we give a funding threshold to what we don't know yet, right? But can you help expand on some of the challenges we face with funding in general?
Of course, absolutely. So I'll take this one. I would like to mention funding appropriation from Congress is a challenge that we must take into account. For example, as of today, science and technology is still under a continuing resolution, which creates uncertainty when executing funding and contracting. However, we try to do our best to plan ahead to ensure sufficient funding for research and development. The cost can vary from the project to project when there is insufficient funding from our side. And we know for sure that it is a project that we are interested in to go forward with that might be a potential huge leap in performances characteristics. We have options that we always explore. For example, we work with other PMs to conduct cost sharing to ensure R&D are completed. Even now, we have existing cost share project with the UK, with the SCS, potentially with TSA in the future. Please remember, I need to mention that S&T concentrates on research and development, not acquisitions. We are not in the business of purchasing and procuring any final product. Therefore, we transition the technology to a customer, to a partner, and let other components of DHS to be involved in the process, and they will give you the feedback. LRBAA office does not put out any funding thresholds or any limit for these projects, but please take in consideration the life cycle cost of your whole proposal. The final point I would like to make is that we try to anticipate challenges related to scope, funding, schedule, and quality. However, we don't compromise the quality. We work early on with other DHS components to ensure funding and scope can be completed and place importance on reducing any kind of risk for S&T and the vendors alike. With that said, we encourage you to submit proposal with realistic scope, cost, and time estimates.
Yeah, and that segues nicely in there to my next question. Toy, did you have anything you wanted to include in that question?
This is to help the industrial partner, right, to understand more about
just the related to the funding challenges that we have.
Yeah,
and
yeah, I can imagine. The CR actually threw a lot of curveball at us, but we did work with all the PM and also with all the DHS component. Number one is that if we can get cost share so that we can cushion the funding so that it's more predictable. You see, if we can pull that resource, and lately we have received a lot.
Flexible everywhere. We're just doing what we can.
That's right. Yeah, but I think we cushion the best, I guess, in that case, because we work with standards group, right? Contribute different funding to understand the threat, what are the threat, their signature, etc. So that's great. And then the DHS component also chip in funding to accelerate certain development, which is also great.
Yeah. So if you have a good idea, you have to know how much it may cost. We're not your customer, but think about it all the way through. Yeah, it's not a target to hit for LRBAA, but it's certainly the target we're looking for is the innovation. So, yeah. So through this process, and we touched on this a little bit, there's going to be key things that you guys will need to know in order to be able to determine if you want to proceed with something, if you're, interested in funding something. So for instance, hey, I'm going to need this thing from you guys, sample or whatever. Is that something we can even provide? So what types of information or what types of elements do you look for to be included in the proposals that are being submitted so that you can make a good determination as to whether you'd like to proceed further?
Okay.
And this is up for anybody.
So I would like to point this out first, right? So the review board, as you may know, is not just me, but we apply very rigorous review process. Two from the S&T, one from the program office, one from the tech center, and one from the components. So that's why we go through that, so that, not only the technical standpoint, the requirement standpoint, but also an operation standpoint, right? Whether that is from the TSO, whether it is from the agent. So that we're going through that process so that we are open to different perspectives to review a proposal. So this is just my personal opinion only. I would say that normally I would prefer that any proposal would say, okay, this is the concept of operation, how to use it, how does an operator use it, just so that we get it off the bat, whether that is aviation security checkpoint, so a TSO use it, or that easy. And if it deviate from the current way that a TSO use it, then please explain how is it different and what would be, the advantage of doing so. And the second thing that I think is very important is start to think about a test and evaluation plan. We are in the business of providing, R&D solution to the component. So whatever we provide to them, got to have enough strong data to say, yes, I can detect this, and this is the probability of detection. So very rigorous. And because of that, before one submit, one to say, well, I would need to come up with this data package, and it will include this, and this is what I think I can hit. So that helps us, but that also bring up the confidence that, the potential industrial partner know what they're talking about. And then the third thing that I really would like to emphasize is that, we would like both the development of, the hardware, the software, and the detection algorithm kind of concurrently, so that we can track. It's very challenging for us to just look at, this one. It has a great optical technology, it's a Raman or IR, but then at the end, it doesn't have the detection algorithm working with it. So we cannot, for us, that we cannot just say, here, component, this is great. It doesn't, because it doesn't have that aspect. So we needed to, again, keep in mind that this is an operator, and they do need to move their task very quickly, and they don't have the time of a scientist or chemist to resolve that.
All right. And we're running up on time, but Adriana, I want to give you an opportunity to reply to this as well.
Of course, thank you. So LRBAA offers great opportunity for you to submit your ideas. If you have an idea that you believe could be interested for DHS, look at our LRBAA's topics, see if there's one for which it fits, and submit the paper. When you submit a proposal, make sure that it is mission relevant for DHS, that it is unique in order for us to be able to fund it. You need to make sure you are able to provide the information and tailor your topic, like also Toy mentioned, that gets enough interest, as we receive lots of proposals for science and LRBAA projects. The LRBAA office had made it much easier for us, the program side and also for the industry side, because as we mentioned earlier, there is an industry engagement followed by a virtual pitch where you can have a dialogue. You can ask questions and help you to refine your goals. We cannot provide guidance or directions to what you are submitting in your proposal. Sometimes people submit lots of ideas and none of them break through, as they could have if they have been concentrated on one approach. So try to determine what really is your best approach. Think about what could be successful.
Yeah, I mean, this is open for ideas, but this is not a, hey, let me just shoot everything I've ever thought of, in the middle of the night, I thought of this, right? No, that's great advice. And I also, again, like we can't give you direction, right? But if you make it to the virtual pitch and a question is asked of you, pay attention to that question. There was something that wasn't quite articulated yet, and that's okay. It's only 20 minutes. It's not the entirety of the effort, but make sure that that's something you pay attention to that clearly has some importance in the future submission if you're invited. So yes. And
also don't be afraid to be too technical. We want everyone to be as detailed as possible in the proposals.
Science and technology, that's where we live, right? Yep. All right, I'm gonna request very brief responses to this last one, just because I want to make sure we can get to some questions from the audience. But what would you, hey, we were immensely successful with the LRBAA. What does that look like? What would the goal of all this be if you could kind of boil it down to something, high level?
For us, a success R&D objective would be, being able to put it in the hands of an operator, ask them to go through that cycle of testing it and say, yes, this one work, it can do whatever I need. And then, to our TSA RCA counterpart, right, or to our Secret Service or to our CBP counterpart, and they say, yes, this one not only check off on all the requirement, the detection requirement, but it also, the form factor that they like, and also within the budget. So that we actually got a lot of pushback on that with regard to, if you think about an ETD, right, it's $50,000 or so roughly the cost. If a solution coming in at $1 million, well, actually it's extremely capable, but given the budget, it's hard. So that's another thing. So that I would say, on time, on budget, and hit the detection requirement. That's the three things that we are aiming for.
We want the impossible all three: fast, good, and cheap. Right?
Going back to that, that's all right.
We can say that's what we want, right? And then see what we get. We might as well shoot for the stars. Adriana, did you have anything to?
Yes, I just hope that the audience takes away from this conversation that we do not have any limitation in funds or due dates to propose to send the initial industry engagement 3 white paper. We need to see unique ideas. How can we improve our technology? How can you enable this vision you present in terms of our ability to advance the existing research and development?
Yeah.
Thank you. And yes, we will be posting the Insights Outreach link so folks can understand more. We wanted to concentrate on this topic area rather than the ins and outs of the LRBAA process, but it's a great point. There's not a due date for it, but if you have an idea, get it in there. All right. So while this is normally when I would say, hey, make sure you get in some questions so that we can ask, and we're still going to do that, but I've seen questions coming in. So one of the things we wanted to do was a poll, just to get an idea from the audience, get some feedback from you, and in addition to some questions on kind of what, having heard what you heard and coming in with whatever, thoughts or whatever that you had coming in. Was there interest now potentially in these topics, in both topics, on another LRBAA topic? Feel free to provide that. While we get some response there, I am going to jump into some questions. Now I've got to get to them, so hold on a second. Shoot. Okay, there we are. I know where I am. All right, so technology, right? Scrolling up. It's scrolled down on me. All right. So this is for both. With the boom in homemade explosives, will DHS be looking at using technology to secure things like ports of entry, toll booths, or other large venues for commercial use? Do you want to give that a shot? Oh, wait, Adriana?
I am looking at can you repeat the question, please, Dusty?
Sure. With the boom in homemade explosives, will DHS be looking at using technology to secure things like ports of entry, toll booths, or other large venues for commercial use?
So within S&T, there's another program that works specifically on that. My fellow PM, this program called Soft Target, and I know that the program has been working very strongly with TSA RCA to develop such a thing. TSA RCA mission is also in transportation in general, not just aviation security. So that's that, yes. But this I can tell also is that even within those scenario, right? Large venue for sports, like football, match or Super Bowl, etc. So there is a need for alarm resolution. So first has always been, there's something anomaly, and then after that, one would have to be able to detect, identify, confirm what it is. So what I also know is that for that kind of applications, a lot of optical technology have been used. But again, trace sampling like the next-gen ETD would still be very much applicable.
Okay, thank you. And so before I go to the next one for you, Adriana, it looks like we have, oh good, nobody chose none of the above. That's awesome. And it looks like we have a lot of interest in these topics. So it looks like we were able to find some potential offerers here today. Wonderful. All right, so Adriana, I'm gonna throw this next one to you. How do you introduce new companies to your RDT&E community?
So an observation is that some companies join for a 3 to 5 years contract in this field. Of course, they become experts, so they know the detection requirements, they know what explosive to detect, at what level to detect explosive, etc., which is great because they keep coming with new development and research. However, engaging with the same community sometimes our view can be restricted. Therefore, we welcome new players to submit, and we'll of course introduce them to our existing ETD partners. So that way we would like to expand and ask for new ideas and technology to be introduced.
There's so many questions here. Sorry, I'm trying to get through. Some of them we've answered, like, can international propose? Toy, is it important to have technology identify the type of explosive or just the general chemical makeup?
In general, because we focus on alarm resolution and the mission from many DHS component is to detect, identify, confirm. The term identify means that we have to know the exact chemical, TNT versus RDX. Sometimes adversary can throw in a curveball, choose, and they added some other fuel mixture, and that make it more complicated. But still, the mission still remains the same, that we do need to know exactly what it is. But I can say this also. So one can think of the use of orthogonal technology to bring to bear on how to solve it, right? One can say, okay, yes, I detect some functional group, and another technology can bring in to detect another functional group, and together, the capabilities is still the same, right? Being able to identify what it is. So that is something that we strongly encourage. If you actually have a way to bring two technology together to solve the same problem, you still have to identify exactly what it is. So that would help us. I know some other agency, they may just say, okay, if you can tell me if it is glass-based explosive, then that should be okay. But I think in this, the two topics that we call out here, we do need more specificity than that.
Adriana, did you have any thoughts on that? Okay. All right. I want to try to get in one more question at least. So has there been any research done on detection of cryo-explosives, explosives created under extremely low temperatures, which have inordinately high yield for their tiny size, and which are be artfully concealed in common passenger personal effects and carry-on luggage?
This is a very challenging question. Okay, I would say this. We do have a very strong networking, opportunity with our TSA RCA counterpart and the Intel community. So from them, then we do get our detection requirements. It get updated, and from there, we're supposed to be able to detect, identify, confirm. I cannot confirm or deny.
So I want to go back to your earlier.
with
I will go back to your
the-
earlier statement where you said, you know, when it's cold and the weather makes things harder. I'm like, absolutely, it does. I
That's right.
find that personally, it impacts my ability to get things done. So I want to thank you both for joining us today. I think this has, you know, really been incredibly informative and has brought a lot of information to folks. Now we should probably tell them how to get to the topics, right?
Yep.
So we do have a slide and we're going to send out some information. So here's, you know, we have the OIP portal, the DHS LRBAA is part of that portal. So the oip.dhs.gov will take you to the portal, and then this information can help you get directly there. We'll be sending this out in the chat. So please make sure to visit and take a gander and let us know how you can help us. I do also want to say that we will be doing more episodes. I can't promise they'll all be as fantastic as this one, but we will be doing more episodes. So please make sure you can go to lrbaa.admin at hq.dhs.gov if you want to figure out how to get onto our listserv and pay attention so that you'll be informed of the upcoming episodes. Adriana and Toy, thank you so much. Have a fabulous Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dusty, for the opportunity. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.